Welcome to the Dunn County Aging Disability Resource Advisory, ADRC meeting, and Monday, March 20th. And let's call the meeting to order. And it's why don't we just go around again, introduce ourselves on the roll call, and then it helps me remember names too. So where do you want to start? Chris Olson.
Tracy Fincher, ADRC manager.
Larry.
Luke Wilsey, Supervisor, District 8.
What is your name?
Luke Wilsey.
Okay.
Hi, Suzanne Gaines.
Carol Kadinger.
Margie Hageman.
Maria Betkowski.
And Charlotte Lee. And I'm Carla Burscheid. I'm the dementia care specialist for the ADRC.
Carla will be doing a little presentation on her position later, so she's our special guest today.
Good. Do we have any comments from the community or anything written in? I don't know who usually gets that. Usually there's not.
I have a comment. I have a comment.
Yep.
Okay. I noticed, someone brought to my attention something about an elder abuse report that was in the newspaper recently, and that could have been caught by one of the banks, but it wasn't. And this person that reported this to me indicated that, I mean, wondered if there was any elder abuse training to the banks, because there was at least one situation just recently that was reported in the paper, and I know of at least 3 situations where the banks could have caught something, and in one case they did catch it, but in the other 2 they didn't catch it. And I'm not sure if they were dementia involved in that or not, but it was financial abuse that could have been caught by the banks. And maybe the banks need some training in how to deal with and how to see the potential of an elder abuse situation. Anyway, that was just what I wanted to mention.
So what I can say, Margie, is that there is a huge focus right now on elder abuse and financial related crimes. We have done outreach to the local banking institutions and are absolutely willing to go in and do training with them. And actually, we do get quite a few reports from banks that have recognized potential abuse, financial abuse, scams, that sort of thing. So they actually know how to contact us and make those APS reports. They actually usually make them by fax. They don't even call in, they just fax in the information. And then we're able to connect with the folks that have been. Sometimes there's situations that the bank has caught in time and put a stop to payment. Sometimes it's something that has gone through before they've been aware of it. It's like something somebody does online or that sort of thing. We also, I think I mentioned at our last meeting that we received a grant to do a training, an elder abuse training with our local police departments. Our APS workers will be going to Madison in June for a 2-day train the trainer event. And a big chunk of that actually is in recognizing financial crimes. So that training will be specifically for law enforcement. But what we've been told is that some counties have broken off the financial piece of the training and offered it specifically for banks and institutions. And so we plan on offering that as well. But
Okay,
yeah,
great.
so what I would say is that I do think we have a pretty good, I've gotten reports from pretty much every banking system that I know works in Dunn County with different, so I do think that there is an awareness. I do think, unfortunately, sometimes the reports are made when it's too late for the bank to do anything, but we're getting more and more reports where the bank is actually catching things. There's some more safeguards they're putting in place where the payments are not going through until they've had time to talk to the individual. But unfortunately, it's not, the technology hasn't caught up quite enough yet for them to make that happen for everything. And I think that the case with the person that was publicized, quite a bit publicized, was I believe that the person withdrew money from their account, a large
Mhm.
amount. And that would have been the opportunity for the teller to say, are you sure you want to do this? That sort of thing. But then they took the money that they withdrew from their account and then went and bought Bitcoin that ended up going to the scammer directly. And there's nothing that the banks can do about that. The opportunity the banks would have been not to, to try to educate the person or find out why they were withdrawing funds. That's always tricky for banks though, because people have the right to close an account and take all their funds if they want to. So it's a lot of, there's a lot of thought that, needs to go into that, and banks don't have the right to not let people withdraw their funds either. So a lot of it is more trying to educate individuals about the scams that are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I-
I just wanted to bring it up
Yep.
and
And-
I just think we need to be aware
Yep.
that those kinds of things are going on and that we try to educate people and the banks as the first stop.
Yep, I actually, the last time I did an educational thing with banks, there were actually representatives from RCU, Wells Fargo, a couple others, I can't remember, and it was last spring, so it's been about a year, but we talked a lot about financial scams, and then we talked about financial powers of attorney and situations where people have like a loved one on their checking account and, different things, and then just talked about how to make APS reports and how to make concerns known. Because sometimes banks don't have the ability to stop somebody from doing something if that's what they say they want to do, but then they make a report to us quickly, where sometimes if we can get involved fast enough, we maybe are able to talk to the person too about what they're planning to do with that money. The unfortunate thing about those scammers is that they're very good at making people feel a sense of urgency. So like that person went from the bank to wherever these Bitcoin machines are. I think it's in Walmart or something. I don't know, directly from the bank to that machine and did everything all at one time. So, then no matter how fast an APS report went through, we would have been too late to help that person.
Well, and banks have turnover in staff a lot. And I know that the Dementia Coalition has done training to banks at some point in the past. And so anyway,
Yep.
thank you.
It's
That's all I
always
wanted to
something that's
report.
out there. And like I said, I think there's going to be renewed opportunity once we are trainers in this federal program that we're doing for the police too. I think we'll be able to spin that one financial piece off and offer it just to banking folks too. The full training is 8 hours. And so we wouldn't want the banks to have to come in and they wouldn't have the time, but just to be able to do that, their section for them is something we'd definitely be willing to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and when I do presentations in the community, like to Rotary clubs and things like that, I have spoken to people from Wisconsin and Dairy State Bank in particular and offered to come in and do dementia-friendly business training for that reason too. I haven't had any takers yet, but again, staff turnover is a challenge for businesses right now.
Tracy, when you're saying APS, what does that stand for?
I'm sorry, Adult Protective Services. So
Protective
that's
Services,
part
okay.
of APS falls under the umbrella of ADRC in Dunn County.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. I guess this group would understand how Larry could skip over number 3, approval of minutes on January 23rd. Have an approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Luke,
I have a change on that. My name is spelled wrong. And
I'm sorry, Margie.
it's Margy or Margaret. Either
Which
one.
would you prefer? I'll change it to however you.
Margy is
Okay.
fine.
And I know that. I don't know why. I was the one who wrote up these minutes, so I don't know why I spelled it like
So
that.
just-
I will make that change.
Thank you.
is there a second? I got Luke.
Second is modified.
Okay. So all in favor of approval of the minutes as modified, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And Heather, that's right, she just came. Thank you. No, you're fine. You missed my speech though about my spring shirt here and yeah, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Any more comments from public that have been sent in or anything? I guess they always ask for that.
You don't see anything on Zoom, do you?
No, I never received anything.
Thank you.
Okay. And then next item, item 5 is upcoming meeting date, May 15th. And we'll have our advisory committee, and then we'll also meet with nutrition. So we'll have Bernie here, and we'll make sure that he knows that it's summer and we expect a summer exciting report. Yeah.
And will that meeting be at 1:00 also, sir?
I believe so, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
I believe we do the nutrition committee meeting at 1 and then the ADRC meeting follows directly after. Usually the nutrition meeting is about a half an hour long.
More information that you need. I had a neighbor that always is the first with her garden, and she's got all these plants ready to go. And she says, everything was going good in my schedule till it came up that I plant potatoes on St. Patrick's Day. And she says, I had to shovel 3 feet of snow out of where the potatoes were supposed to go. So they're still in the bag. Okay, more great news and information. Okay. Staff report.
Okay, I'm gonna start. I'm just gonna give a quick recap. At our last meeting, I talked about the Independent Living Support Pilot Grant that Dunn County applied for in conjunction with Eau Claire and Chippewa counties. And just a little recap of what that was. We applied for 320 slots of a potential 5,000 that were allowed through the state of Wisconsin. And if we were granted for each of those slots, participants in the program would receive up to $7,200 in a calendar year that they could use to spend on items or services to keep them safely in their home. So things like ramps or lift chairs, assistance with nursing help in the home, hoard cleanups if somebody needed help with that. It was a very flexible program, and it was also designed for people who don't fit some of our more traditional ADRC programs financially. Our traditional programs, our traditional long-term care program that a lot of folks are interested in, people have to spend their assets down to $2,000. And this program will be allowed for folks who are up to 300% of the federal poverty level. I'm very excited to report to the group that we were one of 12 projects across the state funded. So we did receive that funding, and even more positive news for that is that shortly after we found out that we had been granted, there were 2 parts of the project, the $7,200 for the participants, and then for each enrollment slot, the county would receive $704 in administrative costs, and that goes towards funding the staff and those sorts of things. Shortly after, the state contacted us and said, we've decided to up the amount in the administrative cost because some counties had concerns that it wasn't going to be enough to fund their expenses. So they upped the administrative cost to $864 per slot. So that gives us some extra funding, which really is going to loosen things up for us in terms of when we're going to be able to start staff, and so that was very exciting. And at the same time, they let us know that they were opening up an additional 500 slots throughout the state. Wow. And they asked if any counties would be interested in additional slots. So I connected with my counterparts in Chippewa and Eau Claire County, and we agreed to ask for 180 additional slots, which would bring our total enrollment to 500. When I did submit the request, the gal who is our project manager did respond, and she said, I received your request and I don't know that we will be able to to meet everybody's asks in terms of what people are asking out of those 500 additional slots. And I said, while we would love to have 180 slots, we would be grateful for any additional slots. And we certainly feel that in our 3-county area, we would be able to fill those. So we did find out we were granted an additional 110 slots. So we will have a total of 430 slots through our 3-county area. And just for those who like numbers, I calculated what the amounts would be. So this grant will bring into our 3-county area, specifically direct support to individuals, will be $3,096,000. That's indirect support. In the administrative funding will be $371,520 for a total of $3,467,520. So that we are starting the process of hiring. We are planning to hire up to 2 full-time employees that will cover the 3 counties. We're willing to, if somebody wants to work part-time, we'd be able to hire like 2 part-time for one of those full-time or something, but up to 2 full-time employees. We've started that process, and the project is set to start enrolling members on July 10th of this year. So very, very exciting news. We're super excited about that. And again, that is fully funded. There is no requirement for county match in that program. And the state is really taking this quite seriously. I've participated in other grants, and this one I can tell that they really are going to make a push to continue and expand. There's a evaluator that's already part of the project from UW-Madison, who will be evaluating the project throughout the 2 years. This funding for this project came from unspent COVID or ARPA funds that the state went to bat with the federal government and asked if they could use it a little bit differently than like COVID education and that sort of thing. And they were granted permission for that. So that's where the funding for this initial 2 years is. But the state has made it clear that they expect this will be very successful, and they're hoping that they will be able to expand this, continue and expand. You know, this is the way ADRCs actually started in the state, is certain counties were pilot projects, and then it expanded to additional counties and then across the state. And it looks like this is like what they're going to hope to do. So we're excited to be part of this initial piece and gathering good information, and hope that this is very successful so that it's something that is made permanent and will be expanded. So I'm very, very excited. I had told you guys that the last one that if we didn't get it, I was going to be disappointed. So I almost started crying when I found out that we got it. So I was just really pleased, and it's going to be a little bit of extra work, but I think that for the amount of good that this could do, it will be 100% worth it.
Right.
So I'm excited to let you guys know that.
Good
So-
for you.
If people are interested, who do they contact, or?
They'll contact us at the ADRC.
Okay.
Everything will run through the ADRC offices. The state actually, for the moment, has asked us not to put the information out to the public because they are actually preparing all the marketing materials for us, which I appreciate because that's not my forte. I love new programs and I love that, but doing marketing isn't my strong suit, although I will do it if I need to. But they're going to actually put those materials together and a press release that they're hoping that we will all kind of release at the same time so that the same information gets out in public. They just don't want information to get out there and have people contacting counties that were not funded and that sort of thing. And it just causes a lot of information or a lot of confusion. We do have another meeting this Thursday regarding the grant, and the topic of it is marketing. So I'm anticipating that they'll have made progress, and hopefully we'll get some info, because I would like to be able to get a press release out and get the information out there. Technically, we cannot enroll people until July 10th. That's the first date we'll be able to enroll. But I anticipate that we might be getting calls and questions where we can at least take some people's information down. And then when our new employees are starting, they'll have kind of a list to start from in terms of being able to contact people. And once July 10th comes around. So very exciting. And again, it seems like the state is willing to be very flexible in terms of the types of services and goods and things that people utilize that money for, as long as we are able to show that it's something that's keeping them safely in their homes.
Right.
So,
I have a couple of questions.
sure.
One is, you said it's a 2-year program.
Right.
Does that mean it's 420 slots each year or in the 2 years?
In the 2 years.
Okay.
So people can enroll, the enrollment period will be from July 10th until March of 2024. There's a 9-month enrollment period. And then they'll have 1 year to spend that money. So the program will be set to sunset in March of 2025, because the last people who enrolled in March of 2024 would have that year to spend those funds. And those employees that will be enrolling people will also be responsible for some level of case management with them they'll have to touch base with those folks throughout that year period to see how the program is going, if they need any assistance, if they're looking for ideas in terms of how best to spend those funds and that sort of thing. And then at the end of the program, they'll need to kind of close the program out, see where the folks are, and see if there's any referrals that need to be made for them. Now that their funding has been spent, do they need a referral back to the ADRC for more information about other resources that they need?
Okay, the other question that I have is, you say it's 30% of poverty level
300%.
or 300% of
Yes.
poverty level.
Mhm.
Okay, what is that?
I knew I should have had this ready again, but hold on, I'll look it up. Let's see. So for one person, let's see. Oh my gosh. 300% of the federal poverty level for a single person household is $40,770. So that's of income per year. The state told us at our last meeting that they would not be counting assets. It's only income. And then like for a 2-person household, that is, it goes up to $54,930. So that I think that that will really encompass a decent percentage of folks in our counties.
Okay, that's helpful.
So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tracy,
Yes.
Any safeguards on the program? I've dealt with some contractors in the past that, okay, this deck's gonna cost $4,000.
Mhm.
3/4 of the way through, oh, by the way, now your door has to be replaced. That's
Sure.
another $2,000. I
So.
just went through 3 programs, two with the county
Mhm,
and one with West Cap. You know,
mhm,
they're inclusive and they're good,
mhm.
but I also had I had a electrical issue. And they said, well, we're all done.
Mhm.
3 months later, oh, by the way, you need this now.
Right. So what the state has said is that, yes, there will be safeguards in place. One thing that actually takes some of the burden off of, one thing I think, and I told you guys this last time, I agree, or we in Dunn County agreed to be the lead county for this grant. But one thing that the state is doing is that we are not going to be what is called the fiscal agent, meaning we are not the ones that are going to be entering in contracts or paying like those folks. The state is actually contracting with a separate agencies that have experience doing that. At our first meeting, they did not have the information as to who the fiscal agent was. It had not been publicly announced yet. It sounded like they were just at the end of that period of time that they have to decide who is going to be granted that. I think I will know at my meeting this
So it
week.
won't be open to general contractors. It'll be open to corporations or businesses that have worked with the state and that are bona fide.
Correct. That is my understanding. Like I said, we're waiting for information on who the fiscal agent will be and what the guidelines of that program are going to be. All of that is kind of upcoming. But again, in a way, well, not in a way, that really does take a lot of burden off of us in Dunn County to have to be the ones, that would really put a lot of burden on our fiscal department to be contracting and offering checks and doing all that sort of thing. So I appreciate that this is the way the state is doing that. And what they did tell us is that there will be safeguards in place to be sure that the people that are being paid for services are legitimate and respected. There's a shortage of service providers all over, and that was one of the things that we brought up. And one of the questions the state had for us are what are some challenges that you expect in your different counties? And many were, there's still a lack of caregivers if they're wanting somebody to come in to help with home care and that sort of thing. Just having this funding doesn't change that, but so the, caregiver shortage, lack of service providers, all those sorts of things aren't going away just because suddenly there's funding. So those were the concerns, definitely. But the state has obviously thought through those and probably has been around the block before with programs that have worked with unscrupulous or not appropriate contractors. So it sounds like they've done some good thinking about that. And they said the fiscal agents that they are considering are very well versed and very experienced. So that made me feel good about the thought they had put into that piece. Sure. Heather, can you just just hit the little person. There you go.
With what you mentioned, caseworkers that will help. So if a person needs to, say, have a chairlift put in, they could kind of help them find the resources as well.
Correct. So part of that case management role will be trying to help as much as possible locate those resources. And that again will be, that's why I think the state went with the ADRCs, is because we already have kind of access to a lot of resources for providers and suppliers in the community. So we're kind of the natural fit for that.
Anything else? Anybody?
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, really.
I was telling Paula Winter, I said, I'm still 98% so excited about this, but I have had a couple of nights when I've woken up and 2% of me is anxious because it really is it's a massive program when we're going to be, serving 430 people. But I feel like it was an opportunity that we could not pass up. And I'm just so proud that we got it. And I'm just so excited and hopeful that we do all 12 counties involved 12 projects, because we're a 3-county project, but that we do a good job and are able to provide the data that the state needs to push this forward. So it's exciting.
I
do
have a question. Congratulations on the basis, just that is a 3-county consortium project.
Right, and we are
involved magic somewhere.
Yep. And when they introduced us in our first meeting, they said our very unique project, we're calling ourselves the ILSP program of the Chippewa Valley is what our technical name is. And that's how we wrote the grant. The state said that they're very interested to see how our project goes, to see if that's a model that they would want to follow if the program expands, is to do it more in a regional way like that. So I think they'll be looking at our data pretty closely. After Dane and Milwaukee County, I believe Dunn County had the highest amount of spots. So that was exciting too. Or I'm sorry, our 3-county area, not just us, but so that's exciting. So all good news.
Right. Very good news, Tree. Dementia care, I guess that's the
Yes,
next step
That's
on the.
Carla, and I'm going to pull up for us. Carla has a nice PowerPoint here. If I can.
Guessing you want me to stay seated by my microphone?
Well, you could, or you can turn your mic. I think it does pick up a decent amount, Carla. So it's up to you, whatever's more comfortable. It might be easiest if you stay seated.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Carla, if you just want to indicate to me, I can click
Okay.
to get to the next.
All right, thank you. So just wanted to give a brief overview because it's been over a year, I think, since I've given an update. And so just so everyone knows, I do cover Chippewa County and Dunn County, so kind of part-time in both. So roughly 20 hours a week in each county. And so with the changes and coming out of the pandemic, things are looking different for my role as well. So there's been some positive things and there's been some challenges too. So I just want to give you kind of an update. And what I've found is a little more acceptance from caregivers to hear some new information from me, right? And to use me as a resource. In the beginning, I started July 2020, so during the pandemic. Right. So it was very challenging to meet with caregivers. And now I'm able to meet in person, which most of them prefer. And so I've been able to build some good rapport and make some really good inroads with individual care partners. And so, some of the things that I've heard and the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. Right. And so when you're dealing with it, caring for someone that has dementia, this is what I hear. He's so stubborn. He's so lazy. I already told them that. They just don't get it, right? Those are the things because they are using the strategies that they know and it's not working. They need new strategies, right? And so that's where I come in. And so I like to say, when you know better, you can do better. Right. And so sometimes, as I mentioned, that's an individual training, one-on-one. I have a lot of people that prefer to meet me at the office and meet with me. They don't feel comfortable talking in front of their person with dementia. And that's fine. But one thing that we have really rolled out in the last probably 9 months is the Savvy Caregiver Training course. And so that is from Emory University. It's an evidence-based course. Okay. And so it meets for 7 sessions, 2 hours each session. So it's typically once a week for 7 weeks. And in that, it is caregiver training just for caregivers of someone with dementia. So it is like a college class, kind of Dementia 101, right? This is what the disease is, right? And so that takes away some of the he's so stubborn, she's so lazy things because they understand the brain disease and they understand how to approach it differently. And so that has been a very, very, very positive course. We will be offering that this July at the Senior Center in Menominee. And we're working with the Adult Day Services program that's at the Senior Center. So if somebody needs that respite care in order to attend, we are going to help facilitate that. We don't want to have that as a barrier for them to not attend and get this information. Any training that I provide is always free, so there's no cost to the caregiver. We also do book clubs, either virtually or in person. Through the winter, they're always nice to do virtually because then we don't have to cancel with all the ice storms that we've had. And so that's gone very well. And so some of those books are brain health related. And so even if it's a caregiver, it could be an adult child that's concerned about their brain health. They can attend that. Or just anyone that's aging is concerned about their brain health and can attend that as well. Other books that we use are obviously more meant for the caregiver. So My Two Elaines by Martin Schreiber is one that we use a lot. Loving Someone Who Has Dementia by Pauline Boss. Those are excellent books, and we've gotten a really good response from both of those. Support groups virtually and in person. Margie spearheads the support group at the Senior Center. I fill in when she's traveling the world. But otherwise, but that's been very well received and very well attended in Menominee. We do recognize though that during the pandemic, we started virtual support groups and those will never go away. Because again, that respite piece for some people, they can't find somebody to stay with their person to attend. And if they live out of the Menominee area, they might not have resources for someone else to stay. And we're reaching adult working children. We have an evening support group once a month from 7 to 8 p.m. to catch those working adult children and grandchildren. There are a lot of grandchildren caring for grandparents that are working during the day. and don't have those resources and don't have that experience. And so that has been a very positive experience. And I facilitate that support group with another dementia care specialist in the central Wisconsin area. And so we have caregivers all over the state of Wisconsin on that call, and we've had up to 16, I think was the highest in attendance that we've had. And then mid-month, we send out an email to all of those people and just give them a few reminders. Hey, this is what we talked about last time. Here's a little more information if you want to look into it before we meet next. So just to kind of keep that connection throughout the month. Our memory cafes, they've been slow to take off again after the pandemic. We do have one in Menominee and then one in Chippewa Falls. But we're still just gonna keep plugging away.
What exactly?
What is a memory cafe?
Yeah.
Yes. So I get asked that a lot, and I think that's kind of one of the barriers, to be honest. And so a memory cafe is really just designed to provide social engagement in a safe space for people with dementia and their caregivers. We don't talk about dementia. We don't talk about caregiving. It's just truly social engagement. So we have coffee, we have cookies, we might play bingo, we might do a project of some sort. But yes, I think that's one of the main barriers is people don't understand. And we do list that on our flyers, but I think it gets brushed over. So what I'm going to try next month, I received an award, a grant through the Chippewa Valley Gardeners Association, Master Gardeners. And I'm going to do a gardening club for people with dementia and their care partners in Chippewa Falls at the library. And I'm hoping that that takes off and is well received. And I will then duplicate that in Menominee to replace the memory cafe.
Nice.
So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Like I mentioned, I do family visits, home visits, family visits. Now that everyone's comfortable with Zoom, I can have all the kids that live all over the United States on with mom or dad, and they're all hearing the same information at the same time. So that's been very valuable. Continue to do presentations in the community. So I do brain health presentations, Dementia 101, Dementia Live. And then I have a huge library of resources, either digital that I can email people, or I do have DVDs and books available for people to check out too.
You know, I think that the first topic of I think for individuals, families that are kind of struggling with dementia, and that as the disease seems to creep up, you think that it's just that particular individual's issue.
Yes.
And it's only whenever you're around other people or you're made aware of this is very characteristic of the disease of dementia that you realize the commonality that was there. And
yes.
Our son had autism from the time he was born, but he wasn't diagnosed until he was 2.5. And we had a chance when he was 5 to be in a program in the Twin Cities. And we were so amazed that everything that we thought was so unique to our son, when we saw other individuals, it's like, no, I mean, this is what autism is, because there was so much commonality in the behaviors and the movements and everything, that it was really eye-opening to us, just that it's much more the condition and not the person.
Right. That's very perceptive. And that I like that correlation, because it's very true. Every caregiver that comes in and talks to me says, usually comes in with a list. You know, you wouldn't believe what she's doing. Yesterday she did, and I just sit and nod and nod and let them talk. But then I say, all the examples you are giving me are all very common with this type of dementia. Can we talk about some strategies?
Right.
Yes. but they all feel very unique. And that's where the support group is so beneficial too, because one person will get up the courage to, express their frustration and three other heads are nodding, right? And so then they don't feel so alone in their situation. Definitely. Yep. And so through all of those different things that I am providing in the community, I am helping to kind of reframe the mindset. A lot for the caregivers, but just the community in general too. If you know strategies to talk to somebody with memory loss in a positive way, and you have opportunities and we can script things out, you're likely going to be more comfortable doing that, and that's going to decrease the stigma as well. So these are just some of the things that I've heard. I never thought about it that way, and that goes back to he's so stubborn. He's so stubborn. And I said, but have you ever thought that he is trying to make sense of what you're telling him with what brain matter he has left? I never thought about it that way. He's not trying to give you a hard time. He's having a hard time. Right. And I'm sure you can relate to that too. And just kind of changing our standards a little bit as caregivers, right? One thing that's common with people with dementia is a lot of times their hygiene patterns will change. And how much do you want to fight that? And how much can you accept and say, oh, that's good enough? Yeah, and or you weren't able to attend something because it was an extremely difficult day. But you did the best you could that day, and that's good enough. And so taking some of that burden off of the caregiver too. Self-care, we always talk about that, right? If you burn out, you're not going to be a very effective caregiver. And getting so basic as to stop saying, remember, I told you that. Right. Just stop saying that. You're only frustrating yourself and them. And so let's talk about some scripts and strategies that would be better received for both of you. So those are just some of the examples that I have for that. And then these are just some things that I have been doing lately. So dementia in ministry is something that we offered in the fall, and that was open to any churches in the Tri-County area. So I did that in conjunction with Lisa Wells, who's the dementia care specialist for Eau Claire County. And we did it virtually because we know that pastoral staff, to find a 2-hour chunk of time to meet at a central location is next to impossible. So we did do it virtually. We had 25 churches attend. We were hoping for more, but we are going to continue to offer that every fall. And then what we did is, we just talked about how do you serve those people in your community and in your congregation that have dementia and their caregivers. And we gave a list of 15 different next steps. What's your comfort level? What's your availability? What can you do to support them? And that could range anywhere from providing more caregiver books in your library at church to starting a respite program or anything in between. Right. And so still working with some of those churches to move forward on that. Dementia Live, which is the dementia simulation. Brain health initiative. So I do a lot of those virtually, and that's Boost Your Brain and Memory. And then the High Octane Brain is the book club version of that. Dementia and Safety. So that's some virtual and in-person presentations that I've done, and that's around just safety in the home. And that can be low-tech technology, things that can help with that, and all the way up to high-tech things, just to help those caregivers to not have to remember everything and take a little bit of that burden off of their plates. Dementia Friendly Wisconsin, and that includes dementia friendly business training, dementia friends training, which can be any community group or organization. I did behaviors, and I have behaviors in quotes, right? Because if we get down to the nitty gritty, behaviors when it comes to dementia is just their way of expressing their frustration or trying to express themselves is coming out in a behavior. And so we did behavior training with APS to equip them when they get into situations that they can kind of take a step back and see what are all of the components here. It's usually the person with dementia, the environment, and the caregiver, and how those three are interacting.
What's APS?
Adult Protective Services, yep. And then in the future, I'm working with a couple other dementia care specialists through the state to provide dementia and technology videos. And so our goal is to go through some of the more high-tech things that are out there for caregivers, because again, respite is not an option for some people. But so for example, the first one we're going to do is using the Amazon Echo Show, and how that could be used as a caregiver tool, as well as for long distance family members to check on that person. And so once we have those videos available, then they will be on YouTube on our websites that we can share with caregivers and things. Every year we do a dementia in the holidays, kind of preparing caregivers for what to expect, what's good enough. Gift ideas, we go through all of those types of things, preparing family members that are coming to visit for what's the state right now, what to expect. I did a Lewy body presentation with Jim Adams, if anyone's familiar with him. He is an author. He wrote a book about caring for his wife that had Lewy body dementia. He lives in the Rice Lake area, but he did a presentation for us. It was wonderful.
What's his name again?
Jim Adams, and the book is Other Me's, The Other Me's, because so with Lewy body dementia, if you're not familiar, one of the main characteristics is hallucinations. And so his wife would often, he was 4 different Jims. He was the mean Jim, he was the nice Jim, he was the lawyer Jim, and he had like different personalities depending on when he walked in the room. And so that's a unique thing to work through as a caregiver too. Right. But he's a very good speaker too.
His last name again was?
Adams.
Where's
Mhm.
he from?
I think he lives in the Rice Lake area, but he does a lot for the Alzheimer's Association. Actually, he has a presentation coming up I can send around. Yeah, so then this is just some examples of the different safety things that we would talk through on like the dementia and safety presentation that I do. So there's different electronic pill dispensers, all the way down to the low-tech kitchen locks that you would have if you had small children in the house to keep cleaning supplies and things locked behind a cabinet door. The bathroom faucet, that
Yeah,
extra
what's that?
extension, that's a scald guard. Yeah. And so, and then there's the auto shut off that you can connect to the stove. So it's shut off. The baby monitors, the video baby monitors, caregivers are finding that very handy, and you don't need Wi-Fi in order to use those in the home. And so you can be outside doing your gardening and you could still check on that person, or you could be in the basement doing the laundry, etc. And you could keep tabs on that person.
You know, one thing I found tremendously helpful for our son, who now lives in his own apartment in Eau Claire, and he does have some support during the day, but he has many hours by himself, is they're very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive lock boxes that you can set the timers for up to like 48 hours. And what we use them for principally is for his staff leaves usually by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But then he does have a 7 o'clock snack. And so the snack goes into a lockbox. The timer's set to go off at 7 o'clock every evening. And so he doesn't have to have the staff with him in order to be able to have his snack
Yeah.
at 7 o'clock.
Right, because that's part of his routine. That's,
But one of the
right.
things that has been tremendously helpful, and we now have this battery of 5 of these, is that when winter storms hit in Eau Claire and his caregivers can't get there, they have actually stacked the lock boxes. So for the next day's breakfast, for the next day's lunch, snack, dinner, whatever. And, for the up to the full 24 hours and up to the 48, but they never have to go that far. But there have been 2 times this winter where staff has not been able to get over to his place, but because of the lock boxes, as long as he has his food, he's a happy camper. And then we can FaceTime him, and I FaceTime him all through the day. But it makes it's just a peace of mind that it gives me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, there's people use it for if they want to stop smoking and they're not sure that they can trust themselves, they put their cigarettes into the lockbox and set the timer for some time in the future or whatever. You can use them for lots of different things. It's called Kitchen Aid, I think. I can't remember the exact name, but yeah, they are very helpful.
Yeah,
And
thank you for
fairly
that.
low tech.
Thank you for that. I will check into that because one thing with frontal temporal dementia is they often will obsessively eat
Yes,
and
and-
don't recognize when they're full.
yes.
And that can be very challenging for caregivers. So that
Right.
is a really good resource. Thank you. So I kind of talked about some of these. So our memory cafes, again, are slow to take off. Some of the book clubs, we've tried them and had 1 or 2 people sign up, and then we've had to cancel them. But we keep trying. Apprehension to meet in person, I think we can finally take that off the list. And in the last 6 weeks, honestly, I have seen a significant increase in attendance of presentations that I've provided. Lack of respite options and reaching caregivers. There's still a high amount of caregivers that don't know that I'm available as a resource in both counties. And so I'm always working to change that.
The book club thing, I can see where so many people feels like there's no way I have time to read a book, but it'd be wonderful if like movies, if there were some movies that people could all watch and then have an opportunity to talk about later, like a 2-hour block of time. Maybe people can find the time for that, but like a book is just so hard to have the time if you're a caregiver to really.
Right. Yeah.
Or if it's
I
not a
wonder-
book you wanna read.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
I'd
printed.
have to look into that because I'm sure there's copyright issues, but I'll see how I can, I'm sure there's a way around that. I'm just thinking of like the Canopy app that's available for free through the library.
Oh, yeah.
They have documentaries and movies on. I can look into that. When we do book clubs, we typically do 1 chapter a week.
Oh,
And then,
that's a good idea.
yeah, and then so we'll meet for like 6 weeks in a row. And so
Got it.
it's how it was designed when we first started during the pandemic was to be a support group.
Yeah.
But sometimes people are more apt to join a book club than a support group.
Right.
And so that's why we tried
Right.
that avenue.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of a movie, if, it wouldn't mean that you'd all have to watch it together.
Right.
Just say, here's a movie and we're gonna talk about it on this date.
Yep.
And then let people watch it on their own.
Yeah.
And then you
Right.
wouldn't have to have copyright.
Yeah. That's an idea. I like that. I will look into that. Thank you. So providing more training for caregivers. Again, as I mentioned, I'll be offering the Savvy Caregiver in Dunn County, and then I'm offering it
with Eau Claire County this fall, but it's gonna be at a church that's on the border between Chippewa and Eau Claire County. So just again, trying to spread a wide region to reach a bunch of caregivers. And then more opportunities in the general public. So just trying to get out to those Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, things like that. And just again, because then they can help spread the word too. And then, like I said, creating caregiver trainings and videos. I will be presenting at the Chippewa Valley and Learning and Retirement in April, and I have 115 people signed
Oh
up.
my goodness.
And so I just talked to Elizabeth today and she's going to record it for me. And so then that information can go on the website. So that'll be fantastic. So. And so this is where my ask comes in. So now that you know a little bit more about what I do, what can you do to help me spread the information that I am here and can help caregivers or community members, community organizations to be more savvy as it comes to interacting, communicating with people with dementia. And so these are just some ideas. One thing, I do have a dementia resources Facebook group. It's through Chippewa County, is how you would find it. But even if you are a Facebook savvy person, if you want to like that page and then you can share that information, I would appreciate that. I post once or twice a week on there. We do have for Chippewa County, we have a lot of our events on Facebook as well. And then I do share those with Denise and then she gets them out on to the Dunn County site too. If you are involved in any of those community organizations and there's an opportunity for me to present, I would appreciate that. Or faith communities for that matter. So
I wonder about Chippewa Valley Tech and Stout but especially with Chippewa Valley Tech, don't they do training in various nurses, aides and things like that?
yeah, so that's a really good point. And Lisa Wells does cover most of that because it is physically Eau Claire County is the main campus for those groups. However, I am making connections with UW Stout and have been able to provide a little bit, but I want to expand on that a lot because there's a lot of anywhere from the gerontology program, the dietetics program. I've had some combination with them. They've done some brain health. They're working on a project for that right now, but I also want to work into like criminal justice and those types of things. So they understand when they come out, how to approach someone with dementia. Yep. So yes, if you have a contact, even through the UW Stout system that you think I should connect with, please let me know.
One of the things that I am concerned about is there are people that don't use technology and they're in an age range where they've never really learned to use technology and you know of at least one of them in our support group that doesn't, I mean, I can't send an email to them and even let them know that a meeting's coming up or to send any information. And I think that's a kind of a small but dying population, but we need to figure out how to address that. And so much of what you have is communicated through technology. And how do we reach out to those that don't have that skill and won't use it? And
I think I do the same as you do for the one person we're talking about, and you know, that small handful, I call him.
I call
mail
or
him
or I
things.
mail things.
Yep. I've offered several times to come to the home and meet with him, but he declines that. And so, yes, for that small pocket of people, you try different avenues.
But I think there are people out there that we may not be touching that may be in that category. So I'm just.
Good. I think that's it. Yes, and just, where can you be a light in the community, in this challenge for caregivers and people living with dementia? And then I think that just has my contact information on there. And so if you have anyone that I should connect with, please let me know.
What is your Facebook page?
So the ADRC of Chippewa County, and then my dementia group is under that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was the telephone numbers again, Carla?
Sure. So my work cell phone number is probably the easiest and best way to get a hold of me, and that is 715-944-8091. Right. And I just want to say that, couple things. Carla, we are so fortunate to have her. If any of you have heard her speak to groups, she does an exceptionally wonderful job. So I'm excited that she's going to be presenting to the Chippewa Valley Learning and Retirement Group. And I'm going to have a booth there. Carla invited, or they've invited me to have a booth just with ADRC information in general for folks too. But, and Carla's background suits her well for this position. She has a background in occupational therapy, and a lot of times when she meets with people in their home, she can use those skills to really see ways that people might be able to utilize tools that, number one, they weren't even aware were out there, or that they wouldn't have thought of from themselves. So we're just so lucky to have her. Carla's position, the dementia care specialist, started much like the ADRC started, and hopefully how this new ILSP program started as a small pilot project in some counties, and then expanded and now is across the state of Wisconsin. For counties of our size, they only fund usually up to a 20-hour a week or a half-time dementia care specialist. But we found, in communicating with Chippewa County, they agreed it's much easier to keep a quality employee like someone like Carla if you can offer a full-time position with benefits. So that's why Chippewa County and Dunn County paired together so that we could offer one full-time position in the hopes that that person will stay with that position. And we've been lucky to have Carla it's going on your third year, right, Carla? Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to speak out on Carla's behalf that we're so lucky to have her. And again, kind of a cool little example of how these programs develop within the state ADRC system. And hopefully we'll see similar things with that ILSP program too. So.
And when is your presentation for?
I'm sorry, April 11th.
Carla, I have one question. And this is so basic, maybe everybody knows, but to be part of the dementia program, do people have to have a diagnosis by somebody to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and absolutely not. They don't have to have an official diagnosis to meet with me at all. Right. Because sometimes that's a big barrier for caregivers to get their person to go to the doctor to get tested. And so we don't want that to be a boundary that they can't cross in order to get help from me. So yes, anyone that's concerned with memory loss or has
being silly and serious at the same time. I don't know where I ever heard this first phrase, and it I mean to be just not disrespectful, but it rolls around in my head. Of all the things I lost, it's the mind. My mind is what I miss the most. I mean, and how do you know?
Right.
Just you won't necessarily know it's happened.
Yeah.
Right. It's usually someone else is bringing it to your attention or concerned about it. It is usually the case, not always. Some people recognize that they have memory loss and get very anxious about it. So it can be both sides of the pendulum swing, right?
I recognize haven't I already told you to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. And, and some memory changes are part of normal aging.
too. And so to keep that in mind. But come to my presentation and you'll know a little more.
Thank you
about
very
that.
much. That's
Thanks.
just, I'm really impressed. I really am.
Thank you.
Charlotte,
Yes,
is there any thought of doing school systems?
yes.
Because the target kids are the ones that are gonna be able to see that grandpa's not right, grandma's not right, mom and dad are.
Yeah,
They
Great
probably think
question.
that all the time anyway.
right? Yeah,
That's what kids think. Well,
Right.
Maybe it's not goofy.
right. Yes.
Parents just accept, well,
I hate to interrupt, but can you repeat that in the microphone? I could not hear
For
it.
The question was, if I'm reaching out and working with schools, with kids in schools.
Or
Yeah, and so great question. And so kind of two part to that. So we do have a couple INA specialists at the ADRC that do dementia live simulation at the high school for a couple different classes. Beyond that, the Department of Public Instruction last year created a whole curriculum on brain health, utilizing the dementia care specialists as a speaker as needed throughout that curriculum. And so, but that curriculum is very broad, right? And so they could take the brain health and just discuss concussions, right? And not get to that dementia piece. I'm always reaching out whenever I make a connection in the schools. I haven't had anyone take me up on that yet. But yes, that is my goal, is to not only reach the middle school, high school, because they are likely caregiving on some level too, but to also continue to reach those adult working children, because they're not necessarily reaching out to the ADRC because they think that's a resource for their parents, not for them. And so we're missing a big piece of caregivers.
Well, there's one other area of caregiving that is long distance caregiving,
Mhm.
because families are living so far away. And, you know, how do you be a long distance caregiver, and whether it's grandchildren or children?
Yep.
And that's another piece that,
Yep.
Uh,
And that's where the high tech stuff comes in handy for that piece too.
it's also
Mhm.
hard with HIPAA because if a brother or sister-in-law, whatever, is bad and you see their doctor and say, you know, this person, I can't talk to you about it. You know, that ties a person's hands. HIPAA is good for 90% of the stuff, but there's that 10% that they forgot about.
Mhm. Yep. And so that's why it's important to make sure you have those people listed as people that can receive information. Right? And there are ways to pull the nurse aside if you're a spouse and say, I'm concerned. And they are supposed to get a memory screen as part of their Medicare annual exam too. And so asking for that. Mhm. Get them to the doctor.
Into the doctor.
Yeah. And I work with caregivers through that too. Like, for example, I had one that they were in Florida and the wife is taking care of the husband. The husband had they called it a mini stroke, did a CAT scan and everything, didn't show anything. But she's like, I really, you know, there's definite memory loss. And they noticed that in Florida, but he doesn't see it and I can't figure out how to get him to the doctor. So we worked through some different scripts. I said, okay, what if you make this appointment with the neurologist here and you tell him this is a checkup. This is a 6-month checkup from your incident in Florida. Yeah, he might go along with that. Right? So sometimes you have to fib a little to get to the goal that you need to accomplish. Yeah.
Great discussion, everybody. A lot of information. More relevant than I know. Anything else? Should we just go to number 7? Tracy, on actions taken by the committee?
We have none for this meeting.
Well, thank you for making the meeting worth people's time to be here today and listen and learn. And I'm really protecting good weather for May, you know.
You did for today too, though, Larry.
I
So
know.
I don't know
Well,
if we can count on it.
Yeah, I know. I would say I remembered last March was really good, but I better not put myself there. Okay, well, thank you very much, and just call the meeting adjourned. Till next month.
And then if everyone would just hand in their, if you haven't already, your per diem sheet, that would be great.